marching into battle against my enemies. In my heart I hold the Bible and all your promises. Disappear, taken by your mighty flame. The enemy dread and fear when I invoke your name. You shut the mouth of lions, set Paul and Silas free. As David beat Goliath, you always win for me. Against the enemy like a hungry lion. I will not be afraid, nothing can stop the Son of Almighty God. I will exalt your name, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. By the power and authority that the name of Jesus comes into battle against the enemy like a hungry lion. I will not be afraid, nothing can stop the Son of Almighty God. I will exalt your name, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. By the power and authority that the name of Jesus comes into battle against the enemy like a hungry lion. I will not be afraid, nothing can stop the Son of Almighty God. I will exalt your name, Jesus Christ. is the name above all names. May your kingdom be glorified. Your name is the King of Kings, Emmanuel, Lord of Lords, Yeshua, Alpha and Omega, resurrection and life, Son of God, the way, the truth. Your name is the King of Kings, Emmanuel, Lord of Lords, Yeshua, Alpha and Omega, resurrection and life, Son of God, the way, the truth. Your name is the King of Kings, Emmanuel, Lord of Lords, Yeshua, Alpha and Omega, resurrection and life, Son of God, King Jesus.
There we are. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm glad to have you guys here. I'm sorry I'm late. I had I had a late night. I had a late night last night, and so I woke up late, and we needed to make breakfast and coffee and things like that. So we're good now. We're good now. We're good. I know we're about an hour late. I said we were going to start at 10. But here we are. Thank you for everybody being here. Thank you everybody on YouTube for hanging out. And thank you everybody on Twitch. You guys are great. If you want to check out the YouTube, you can. There it is. You're welcome to go check that out at your leisure, but no pressure. We're streaming to the gaming channel, not the voice acting channel, so up to you. But welcome in, everybody. We're totally good. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I have to do a strength training almost immediately. Thank you, Baines, for reminding me to disable those. Raposo has claimed first. Glorious brother, well done. Caffeinated Squirrel has claimed second, followed closely by Flying DeCharon. Well done, Battle Sister, well done. And then the fourth is Thunderbird Nix. Honored to have you guys here. Nix with a 50 stream streak. Glorious. Absolutely glorious, Battle Sister. I'm very honored. I'm very honored. That's amazing. You guys bless me so much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you guys have fun. Just as a quick note, before I do some push-ups here. Okay. We are reading today. So for this morning, we're going to be reading The Chronicles of Narnia, The Last Battle. So this is the final book in the series. This is the final book in the series, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope you guys have had a lot of fun listening to the stories and you know, reading through Narnia with me. This has been my thank you to all of you for your wonderfully wild generosity that you guys have shown me over the past year with the job hunt and getting down here to Florida with the family. And thank you so much. I really hope this has been a blessing to you as much as you guys have been a blessing to me. I've been really trying. I've been trying to make this as good as possible for y'all. You know, I'm not a professional actor or voice actor or anything, but I've been having fun reading it. I hope you guys have too. In the meantime, we're going to be doing that this morning. So we're going to read probably 5 chapters of The Last Battle, because there are, as usual, 16 in this book, or 16 chapters in this book. We're going to read again on Thursday and Friday, and then we should be, by the time we're done reading on Friday, we should have finished the book and completed the entirety of the Narnia series. The entirety of its glory. And C.S. Lewis, for he is the author, and a very amazing author that indeed. We may read other books again in the future, but for now, that is going to conclude. That's going to conclude our readings in the morning. I might pick up some other books and do that. Kat, I know some people have been asking when me and Kat are going to continue reading Pride and Prejudice. Next week. Next week we'll do another reading of that. So look forward to that. But in the meantime, here we go. Let's do a little bit of. We're gonna do a little bit of push-ups here, just to get things started. So thank you, Baines, for reminding me to disable those. All right, so we're gonna do 30 push-ups. You guys ready? Here we go. All right. By the way, I owe you all 4 emotes because you guys have graciously unlocked 4 emote slots, which is amazing. Thank you. One of those I think will be a push-up emote. So I gotta figure out how to make that translatable at that size. But here we go. Okay, ready? And in position, and here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 4, 5, 6, 7, 28, 29, 30. There we go. 30 push-ups. We're all set. That's a good stretch for the morning. You've been doing a great job reading the books, big brother. Thank you, Nix. I appreciate that kind word. Pretty kind indeed. So there's the cover. Let me get a sip here. Dan's Awakening, thank you for the lurk, my lord. Yes, dear? I know, I can hear him. Shut the door. Thank you. Battle Baby was very excitable today. He was such a champ. We were downtown in Orlando all yesterday, running around because I was doing in-doc paperwork for my new job, and so we just hung out in Orlando all day. That baby did not nap. He was a champ. He just sat in his car seat and had a good old time. He's a true blue. But, let's see. There we go. Alright. So, sorry, I'm catching my breath. Whew. Probably going to be doing more push-ups today. So, after we're done reading today, we're going to read like 5 chapters. We'll end stream for the morning. But then later tonight, we're going to be jumping back into Valheim. So Valheim, we should be joined by almost the entire Giggle Gang, along with the marvelous Yenzaya, who will be joining us for that battle. In fact, she's live right now. So if you guys don't know who I'm talking about, we're going to shout her out. So she's live, playing a game. Go say hello to her. Go bless her. In fact, go over there and give her a follow and tell her how amazing she is. And how she's to keep it up, keep doing good work, and how excited you are to see her play Valheim tonight with all of us. So we're going to be aiming to keep playing through Valheim until we beat the game. And we are going to do that.
It might need some gills at this rate.
Oh, thank you, Ryoka.
More water.
All right, water achieved. Thank you for the Hydraulis, battle sister. I appreciate it. But yeah, so the last battle. Let me give you an idea of what's going on. So we have not started this book yet, but leading up to this, at the end of the last book, which was the Silver Chair, we found that Prince Caspian was a very old man. Upon Eustace and Jill's return and first visit to Narnia, we found that his son Rillian was missing and his wife had been murdered. He was setting sail on a ship, the Dawn Treader, again to try to find Aslan on his journey to ask who was going to be king after him, since his son was no more. Or he believed so. So Aslan met the kids, sent them off on a journey, and said, hey, go find Rillian. He is in fact alive. Your mission is to bring him home. And so they wound up doing so. They went through the whole book, they found Rillian finally under an enchantment by an evil serpent witch, and set him free and brought him home. But it was a very somber ending, because right when they get back to Narnia, Prince Caspian returns aboard his ship, having been told by Aslan that his son was back and that he would see him again. He arrives in Narnia just in time to see Prince Rillian, give him his blessing, and the noble King Caspian dies. He dies. But before the very end, you get to see Prince Caspian in Aslan's country, once again alive, renewed, young again. And that is how the story ends, basically, is you see that, and Eustace and Jill return to our world. They return to our world. Rico being strong like a bull, yes. Right, that is true. Very good. Ryoko, good morning. Good morning. So we're gonna get into it rather quickly here, seeing as how I'm so late. But we're gonna pick it up here. So right now, in the last battle, so the Pevensies, as far as we know, are done returning to Narnia. Aslan told them that they cannot return. It's too late. They're too old. So in the last book, it was Eustace, the Pevensies' cousin, and his friend Jill from his school who were coming into Narnia now. And this one won't be much different in that regard. So let me inform my son that I'm about to start. You ready? Ready. Okay, we're getting settled. So, but I really like the Narnia books. They're just a good read. It's a good read, but I am going to warn you. This particular one, the last battle, isn't a super happy story. It's an exciting adventure, but it's an infuriating one. So I'm just gonna warn you guys right off the bat that it is infuriating. There's a character in here who is basically a full-blown narcissist, and C.S. Lewis writes him so well, I think, and how he does his things that he does, and it's hard to read. It's hard to listen to, because you want him to just be destroyed. Like, you're just like, this character needs to be viciously destroyed. For the good of all of Narnia. And it's just the word. It's hard. It's a hard read, and it's not going to be a super happy story. It will leave kind of a sad, somber note going in your mind. But it's a good read. It's a good story. Well worth the listen. I'm just gonna preface it with that so that you understand. It could be difficult for you. I'm gonna sit this one out. Then that hits too close to home. Caffeinated squirrel. Understand completely. So I just want you guys to know. Again, great book. This character isn't portrayed as a good guy. They're 100%. No, leave the door cracked a bit. 100% evil, but yeah. And we start off with this character almost right away. So you'll feel free to listen in, sit tight, and we will discuss how things go when we take chapter breaks and the like. So looking forward. Who's the main character? No, it's there's the Prince of Narnia, which is not Rillian. It is. I'm not entirely sure how many years have passed since the events of the Silver Chair, because time in Narnia runs differently. It runs differently than, in our world. So there will be a difference in how things have happened, how time has gone by. But we'll find out all about that here in just a second. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Let me pick. Let's go to this one. There we go. All right. We'll listen to this music a little bit. That should be good. You guys settle in, get your coffee, prepare to listen, prepare to read, and here we go. So, Chapter 1 of The Last Battle by Cauldron Pool. All right. So in the last days of Narnia, far up to the west beyond Lantern Waste and close beside the great waterfall, there lived an ape. He was so old that no one could remember when he had first come to live in those parts, and he was the cleverest, ugliest, most wrinkled ape you can imagine. He had a little house built of wood and thatched with leaves up in the fork of a great tree, and his name was Shift. There were very few talking beasts or men or dwarves or people of any sort in that part of the wood. But Shift had one friend and neighbor who was a donkey called Puzzle. At least they both said they were friends, but from the way things went on, you might have thought Puzzle was more like Shift's servant than his friend. He did all the work. When they went together to the river, Shift filled the big skin bottles with water, but it was Puzzle who carried them back. When they wanted anything from the towns further down the river, it was Puzzle who went down with empty panniers on his back and came back with the panniers full and heavy. And all the nicest things that Puzzle brought back were eaten by Shift, for as Shift said, "You see, Puzzle, I can't eat grass and thistles like you. So it's only fair that I should make it up in other ways." And Puzzle always said, "Of course, Shift, of course, I see that." Puzzle never complained because he knew that Shift was far cleverer than himself, and he thought it was very kind of Shift to be friends with him at all. And if ever Puzzle did try to argue about it, Shift would always say, "Now, Puzzle, I understand what you need to be done is better than you. You know you're not very clever, Puzzle." And Puzzle always said, "No, Shift, it's quite true. I'm not clever." Then he would sigh and do whatever Shift had said. One morning, early in the year, the pair of them were out walking along the shore of Cauldron Pool. Cauldron Pool is the big pool right under the cliffs at the western end of Narnia. The great waterfall pours down into it with a noise like everlasting thunder, and the river of Narnia flows out on the other side. The waterfall keeps the pool always dancing and bubbling and churning round and round as if it were on the boil. And that, of course, is how it got its name of Cauldron Pool. It is liveliest in the early spring when the waterfall is swollen with all the snow that is melted off the mountains from up beyond Narnia and the western wild, from which the river comes. And as they looked at Cauldron Pool, Shift suddenly pointed with his dark, skinny finger and said, "Look, what's that?" "What's what?" said Puzzle. "That yellow thing that's just come down the waterfall. Look, there it is again. It's floating. Oh, we must find out what it is." "Oh, must we?" said Puzzle. "Of course we must," said Shift. "It may be something useful. Just hop into the pool like a good fellow and fish it out. Then we can have a proper look at it." "Hop into the pool," said Puzzle, twitching his long ears. "Well, how are we going to get it if you don't?" said the ape. But, said Puzzle, wouldn't it be better if you went in? Because you see, it's you who wants to know what it is, and I don't much. And you've got hands, you see. You're as good as a man or a dwarf when it comes to catching hold of things. I've only got hoofs.
Really, Puzzle, said Shift. I don't think you'd ever say such a thing like that. I didn't think it of you, really.
Why? What have I said wrong? Said the ass, speaking in rather a humble voice, for he saw that Shift was very deeply offended. Oh, all I meant was...
Wanting me to go into the water, said the ape, as if you didn't know perfectly well what weak chests apes always have, and how easily they catch cold. Very well. I will go in. I'm feeling cold enough already in this cruel wind, but I'll go in. I shall probably die, and then you'll be sorry.
And Shift's voice sounded as if he was just going to burst into tears. Oh, please don't, said Puzzle, and half braying and half talking. I never meant anything of the sort, Shift, really, I didn't. You know how stupid I am, and how I can't think of more than one thing at a time. I've forgotten about your weak chest. Of course I'll go in. You mustn't think of doing it yourself. Promise me you won't do it, Shift. So Shift promised, and Puzzle went cloppity-clop on his 4 hoofs around the rocky edge of the pool to find a place where he could get in. Quite apart from the cold, it was no joke getting into that quivering and foaming water, and Puzzle had to stand and shiver for a whole minute before he made up his mind to do it. But then Shift called out from behind him and said,
Perhaps I'd better do it after all, Puzzle.
And when Puzzle heard that, he said, No, you promised. I'm in now. And he went in. A great mass of foam got him in the face and filled his mouth with water and blinded him. Then he went under altogether for a few seconds, and when he came up again, he was in quite another part of the pool. And then the swirl caught him and carried him round and faster, till it took him right under the waterfall itself, and the force of the water plunged him down, deep down, so that he thought he would never be able to hold his breath till he came up again. And when he had come up, and when at last he got somewhere near the thing he was trying to catch, it sailed away from him, till it too got under the fall and was forced down to the bottom. When it came up again, it was further from him than ever. But at last, when he was almost tired to death and bruised all over and numb with cold, he succeeded in gripping the thing with his teeth. And out he came, carrying it in front of him, and getting his front hoofs tangled up in it. For it was as big as a large hearth rug, and it was very heavy and cold and slimy. He flung it down in front of Shift and stood dripping and shivering and trying to get his breath back, but the ape never looked at him or asked him how he felt. The ape was too busy going round and round the thing and spreading it out and patting it and smelling it, and then a wicked gleam came into his eye, and he said, It's a lion's skin. Is it? Gasped Puzzle.
Now I wonder,
said Shift to himself, for he was thinking very hard. I wonder who killed the poor lion, said Puzzle presently. It ought to be buried. We must have a funeral.
Oh, it wasn't a talking lion, said Shift. You needn't bother about that. There are no talking beasts up beyond the falls, up in the western wild. This skin must have belonged to a dumb, wild lion, yes.
This, by the way, was true. A hunter, a man, had killed and skinned this lion somewhere up in the western wild several months before, but that doesn't come into the story. All the same, Shift, said Puzzle. Even if the skin only belonged to a dumb wild lion, aren't we to give it a decent burial? I mean, aren't all lions rather solemn? Because of you know who, don't you see?
Oh, don't you start getting ideas in your head, Puzzle, said Shift, because you know thinking isn't your strong point. No. We'll make this skin into a fine, warm winter coat for you.
I don't think I'd like that, said the donkey. It would look, the other beasts might think, that is to say, I shouldn't feel...
What are you talking about?
said Shift, scratching himself the wrong way up as apes do. I don't think it would be respectful to the great lion, to Aslan himself, if an ass like me went around dressed up in a lion's skin, said Puzzle.
Now don't stand arguing, please, said Shift. What does an ass like you know about things of that sort? You know you're no good at thinking, Puzzle, so why don't you let me do your thinking for you? Why don't you treat me as I treat you? I don't think I can do everything. I know you're better at some things than I am. That's why I let you go into the pool. I knew you'd do it better than me. Why can't I have my turn when it comes to something I can do and you can't? Am I never to be allowed to do anything? Do be fair. Turn and turn about.
Well, of course, if you put it that way, said Puzzle.
I tell you what, said Shiv, you better take a good brisk trot down river as far as Chippenford and see if they have any oranges or bananas.
But I'm so tired, Shift, pleaded Puzzle.
Yes, but you are very cold and wet, said the ape. You want something to warm you up. A brisk trot would be just the thing. Besides, it's market day at Chippingford today.
And then, of course, Puzzle said he would go. As soon as he was alone, Shift went shambling along, sometimes on 2 paws and sometimes on 4, till he reached his own tree. Then he swung himself up from branch to branch, chattering and grinning all the time, and went into his little house. He found needle and thread and a big pair of scissors there, for he was a clever ape, and the dwarves had taught him how to sew. He put the ball of thread, it was very thick stuff, more like cord than thread, into his mouth so that his cheek bulged out as if he were sucking a big bit of toffee. He held the needle between his lips and took the scissors in his left paw, and then he came down the tree and shambled across to the lion skin. He squatted down and got to work. He saw at once that the body of the lion would be too long for Puzzle, and its neck too short. So he cut a good piece out of the body and used it to make a long collar for Puzzle's long neck. Then he cut off the head and sewed the collar in between the head and the shoulders. He put thread on both sides of the skin so that it would tie up under Puzzle's chest and stomach. Every now and then a bird would pass overhead and Shift would stop his work, looking anxiously up. He did not want anyone to see what he was doing. But none of the birds he saw were talking birds, so it didn't matter. Late in the afternoon, Puzzle came back. He was not trotting, but only plodding patiently along, the way donkeys do. There weren't any oranges, he said, and there weren't any bananas. I'm very tired. He lay down.
Oh, come and try on your beautiful new lion skin coat, said Shift.
Oh, bother that old skin, said Puzzle. I'll try it on in the morning. I'm too tired tonight.
You are unkind, Puzzle, said Shift. If you're tired, what do you think I am? All day long while you've been out having a lovely, refreshing walk down the valley, I've been working hard to make you a coat. My paws are so tired I can hardly hold these scissors, and now you won't say thank you, and you won't even look at the coat, and you don't care, and...
My dear Shift, said Puzzle, getting up at once. I'm sorry. I've been horrid. Of course, I'd love to try it on, and it looks simply splendid. Do try it on me at once, please do.
Well, stand still then, said the ape.
The skin was very heavy for him to lift, but in the end, with a lot of pulling and pushing and puffing and blowing, he got it onto the donkey. He tied it underneath Puzzle's body, and he tied the legs to Puzzle's legs, and the tail to Puzzle's tail. A good deal of Puzzle's gray nose and face could be seen through the open mouth of the lion's head. No one who had ever seen a real lion would have been taken in for a moment. But in someone who had never seen a lion looked at Puzzle in his lion skin, he just might mistake him for a lion, if he didn't come too close. And if the light was not too good, and if Puzzle didn't let out a bray and didn't make any noise with his hoofs.
You look wonderful. Wonderful, said the ape. If anyone saw you now, they'd think you were Aslan, the great lion himself.
Oh, that would be dreadful, said Puzzle.
No, it wouldn't, said Shift. Everyone would do whatever you told them.
But I don't want to tell them anything.
But you'd think of the good we can do, said Shift. You'd have me to advise you, you know. I think of sensible orders for you to give, and everyone would obey us, even the king himself. We would set everything right in Narnia.
But isn't everything right already? Said Puzzle.
What? Cried Shift. Everything right? There are no oranges or bananas.
Well, you know, said Puzzle, there aren't many people. In fact, I don't think there's anyone but yourself who wants those sort of things.
There's sugar too, said Shift.
Yes, said the ass. It would be nice if there was more sugar.
Well, then that's settled, said the ape. You will pretend to be Aslan, and I'll tell you what to say.
No, said Puzzle. Don't say such dreadful things. It would be wrong, Shift. I may not be clever, but I know that much. What would become of us if the real Aslan turned up?
I expect he'd be very pleased, said Shift. Probably he'd sent us the lion's skin on purpose so that we could set things to right. Anyway, he never does turn up, you know, not nowadays.
At that moment, there came a great thunderclap right overhead, and the ground trembled with a small earthquake. Both the animals lost their balance and were flung on their faces. There, gasped Puzzle as soon as he had breath to speak. It's a sign, a warning. Oh, I knew we were doing something dreadfully wicked. Take this wretched skin off me at once, please.
No, said the ape, whose mind worked very quickly. It's a sign. The other way, you see. I was just going to say that if the real Aslan, as you call him, meant us to go on with this, he would send us a thunderclap and an earth tremor. It was just on the tip of my tongue. Only the sign itself came before I get the words out. You've got to do it now, Puzzle, and don't let us have any more arguing. You know you don't understand these things. What could a donkey know about signs?
And that is the end of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The rashness of the king. What are you doing, B? All right, sorry. All right, Chapter 2. The rashness of the king. About 3 weeks later, the last of the kings of Narnia sat under the great oak which grew beside the door of his little hunting lodge, where he often stayed for 10 days or so, in the pleasant spring weather. It was a low, thatched building not far from the eastern end of Lantern Waste, and some way above the meeting of the two rivers. He loved to live there simply and at ease, away from the state and pomp of Cair Paravel, the royal city. His name was King Tyrion, and he was between 20 and 25 years old. His shoulders were already broad and strong, and his limbs full of hard muscle, but his beard was still scanty. He had blue eyes and a fearless, honest face. There was no one with him that spring morning except his dearest friend Jewel the unicorn. They loved each other like brothers, and each had saved the other's life in the wars. The lordly beast stood close beside the king's chair, with its neck bent round, polishing its blue horn against the creamy whiteness of his flank. I cannot set myself to any work or sport today, Jewel, said the king. I can think of nothing but this wonderful news. Shall we hear of more of it today? They are the most wonderful tidings ever in our days, or our fathers', or our grandfathers' days, sire, said Jewel.
if they are true.
How can they choose but to be true, said the king. It is more than a week ago that the first birds came flying over us saying, Aslan is here, Aslan has come to Narnia again. And after that it was the squirrels. They had not seen him, but they said it was certain he was in the woods. Then the stag. He said he had seen him with his own eyes, a great way off, by moonlight in lantern wastes. Then came that dark man with the beard, the merchant from Calormen. The Calormans care nothing for Aslan as we do, but the man spoke of it as a thing beyond doubt. And there was the badger last night. He too had seen Aslan.
Indeed, sire,
answered Jewel. I believe it all. If I seem not to, it is only that my joy is too great to let my belief settle itself. It is almost too beautiful to believe. Yes, said the king with a great sigh, almost a shiver of delight. It is beyond all that I had ever hoped for in all my life. Listen, said Jewel, putting his head down on one side and cocking his ears forward. What is it? Asked the king. Hoof, sire, said the Jewel. A galloping horse, a very heavy horse. It must be one of the centaurs. And look, there he is. A great golden bearded centaur with man sweat on his forehead and horse's sweat on his chest flanks dashed up to the king, stopped and bowed low. Hail, king, it cried in a voice as deep as a bull's. Ho there, said the king, looking over his shoulder towards the door of the hunting lodge. A bowl of wine for the noble centaur. Welcome, Runewit. When you have found your breath, you shall tell us your errand. A page came out of the house carrying a great wooden bowl, curiously carved, and handed it to the centaur. The centaur raised the bowl and said, I drink first to Aslan in truth, sire, and secondly to your majesty. He finished the wine, enough for 6 strong men, at one draught, and handed the empty bowl back to the page. Now, Runewit, said the king, do you bring us more news of Aslan? Runewit looked very grave, frowning a little. Sire, he said, you know how long I have lived and studied the stars, for we centaurs live longer than you men, and even longer than your kind, unicorn. Never in all my days have I seen such terrible things written in the skies as there have been nightly since this year began. The stars say nothing of the coming of Aslan, nor of peace nor of joy. I know by my art that there have been much disastrous conjunctions of the planets for 500 years. It was already in my mind to come and warn your majesty that some great evil hangs over Narnia. But last night the rumor reached me that Aslan is abroad in Narnia. Sire, do not believe this tale. It cannot be. The stars never lie, but men and beasts do. If Aslan were really coming to Narnia, the sky would have foretold it. If he were really come, all the most gracious stars would be assembled in his honor. It is all a lie. A lie, said the king fiercely. What creature in all of Narnia or the world would dare to lie on such a matter? Without knowing it, he laid his hand on his sword hilt. That I know not, Lord King, said the centaur. But I know there are liars on earth. There are none among the stars. I do wonder, said Jewel, whether Aslan might not come through all the stars foretold otherwise. He is not the slave of the stars, but their maker. It is not said in all the old stories that he is not a tame lion. Well said, Jewel, cried the king. Those are the very words, not a tame lion. It comes in many tales. Runewit had just raised his hand and was leaning forward to say something very earnestly to the king when all 3 of them turned their heads to listen to a wailing sound that was quickly drawing nearer. The wood was so thick to the west of them that they could not see the newcomer yet, but they could soon hear the words. Woe! Woe, woe, called the voice. Woe for my brothers and sisters! Woe for the holy trees! The woods are laid waste, the axe is loosed against us. We are being felled. And great trees are falling, falling, falling. With the last falling, the speaker came in sight. She was like a woman, but so tall that her head was on a level with the centaurs, yet she was like a tree, too. It is hard to explain if you have never seen a dryad, but quite unmistakable once you have. Something different in the color, the voice, and the hair. King Tyrion and the 2 beasts knew at once that she was the nymph of a beech tree.
Justice, Lord King, she cried. Come to our aid. Protect your people. They are felling us in Lantern Waste. 40 great trunks of my brothers and sisters are already on the ground. What, lady? Felling Lantern Wastes? Murdering the trees, cried the king, leaping to his feet and drawing his sword. How dare they? Who dares it? Now by the mane of Aslan, gasped the dryad, shuddering as if in pain, and shuddering time after time as if under repeated blows. Then all at once she fell sideways as suddenly as if both her feet had been cut from under her. For a second, they saw her lying dead on the grass, and then she vanished. They knew what had happened. Her tree, miles away, had been cut down. For a moment, the king's grief and anger were so great that he could not speak, and then he said, Come, friends. We must go up the river and find the villains who have done this. With all the speed we may, I will leave not one of them alive. Sire, with a good will, said Jewel. But Runewit said, Sire, be wary in your just wrath. There are strange doings on foot. If there should be rebels in arms further up the valley where we are 3 and are too few to meet them, it would please you to wait a while. I will not wait 10th part of a second, said the king. But while Jewel and I go forward, you do gallop as hard as you may to Cair Paravel. Here is my ring for your token. Get me a score of men-at-arms, all well mounted, and a score of talking dogs, and 10 dwarfs. Let them all be fell archers, and a leopard or so, and Stonefoot the giant. Bring all these after us as quickly as can be. With a good will, sire, said Runewit, and at once he turned and galloped eastward down the valley. The king strode on at a great pace, sometimes muttering to himself and sometimes clenching his fists. Jewel walked beside him, saying nothing. There was no sound between them but the faint jingle of a rich gold chain that hung round the unicorn's neck and the noise of 2 feet and 4 hoofs. They soon reached the river and turned up it where there was a grassy road. They had the water on their left and the forest on their right. Soon after that, they came to the place where the ground grew rougher and thick wood came down to the water's edge. The road, what there was of it, now ran on the southern bank, and they had to ford the river to reach it. It was up to Tyrion's armpits, but Jewel, who had 4 legs and was therefore steadier, stood on his right so as to break the force of the current. And Tyrion put his strong arm round the unicorn's strong neck, and they both got safely over. The king was still so angry that he hardly noticed the cold of the water, but of course he dried his sword very carefully on the shoulder of his cloak, which was the only dry part of him, as soon as they came to shore. They were now going westward, with the river on their right and the Lantern Way straight ahead of them. They had not gone more than a mile when they both stopped and both spoke at the same moment. The king said, What have we here? And Jewel said, Look. It is a raft, said the king. And so it was. 6 splendid tree trunks, all newly cut and newly lopped off their branches, had been lashed together to make a raft, and were gliding swiftly down the river. On the front of the raft there was a water rat with a pole to steer it. Hey, water rat, what are you about? Cried the king. I'm taking logs down to sell to the Kilorman, sire, said the rat, touching his ear as he might have touched his cap if he had one. Kilormans, thundered Tyrion. What do you mean? Who gave order for these trees to be felled? The river flows so swiftly at that time of the year that the raft had already glided past the king and Jewel, but the water rat looked back over its shoulder and shouted out, The lion's orders, sire, Aslan himself! He added something more, but they couldn't hear it. The king and the unicorn stared at one another and both looked more frightened than they had ever been in any battle. Aslan, said the king at last in a very low voice. Aslan? Could it be true? Could he be felling the holy trees and murdering the dryads? Unless the dryads have all done something dreadfully wrong, murmured Jewel. But selling them to Kilorman, said the king. Is it possible? I don't know, said Jewel miserably. He's not a tame lion. Well, said the king at last, we must go on and take the adventure that comes to us. It is the only thing left for us to do, sire, said the unicorn. He did not see at the moment how foolish it was for 2 of them to go on alone, nor did the king. They were too angry to think clearly, but much evil came of their rashness in the end. Suddenly the king leaned hard on his friend's neck and bowed his head. "Jewel," he said, "what lies before us? Horrible thoughts arise in my heart. If we had died before today, we should have been happy." "Yes," said Jewel, "we have lived too long. The worst thing in the world has come upon us." They stood like that for a minute or two, and then went on. Before long, they could hear the hack, hack, hack of axes falling on timber. They could see nothing yet, but there was a rise of the ground in front of them. When they had reached the top of it, they could see right into Lantern Waste itself, and the king's face turned white when he saw it. Right through the middle of that ancient forest, that forest where the trees of gold and of silver had once grown, and where a child from our world had once planted the tree of protection, a broad lane had already been opened. It was a hideous lane, like a raw gash in the land, full of muddy ruts where felled trees had been dragged down to the river. There was a great crowd of people at work, and a cracking of whips, and horses tugging and straining as they dragged at the logs. The first thing that struck the king and the unicorn was that about half the people in the crowd were not talking beasts, but men. The next thing was that these men were not the fair-haired men of Narnia. They were dark, bearded men from Calormen, that great and cruel country that lies beyond Archenland across the desert to the south. There was no reason, of course, why one should not meet the Calormen or two in Narnia, a merchant or an ambassador, for there was peace between Narnia and Calormen in those days. But Tyrion could not understand why there were so many of them, nor why they were cutting down a Narnian forest. He grasped his sword tighter and rolled his cloak round his left arm. They came quickly down among the men. 2 Calormens were driving a horse which was harnessed to a log. Just as the king reached them, the log got stuck in a big muddy place. "Get on, son of sloth! Pull, you lazy pig!" cried the Calormen, cracking their whips. The horse was already straining himself as hard as he could. His eyes were red, and he was covered with foam. "Work, lazy brute!" shouted one of the Calormens, and as he spoke, he struck the horse savagely with his whip. It was then that the really dreadful thing happened. Up till now, Tyrion had taken it for granted that the horse what the Calormens were driving were their own horses, dumb, witless animals like the horses of our own world. And though he hated to see even a dumb horse overdriven, he was of course thinking more about the murder of the trees. It had never crossed his mind that anyone would dare to harness one of the free, talking horses of Narnia, much less to use a whip on it. But as that savage blow fell, the horse reared up and said, half screaming, "Fool and tyrant! Do you not see I'm doing all I can?" And when Tyrion knew that the horse was one of his own Narnians, there came over him and over Jewel such a rage that they did not know what they were doing. The king's sword went up, the unicorn's horn went down, they rushed forward together, and next moment both the Calormens lay dead, the one beheaded by Tyrion's sword, and the other gored through the heart by Jewel's horn. And that is the end of chapter 2. No, they're invaders, but they charged rashly without support, and that is a problem. Kinda, a bit. Maybe. That's the thought. Chapter 3. The Ape in its Glory. Master Horse, said Tyrion as he hastily cut its traces. How came these aliens to enslave you? Is Narnia conquered? Has there been a battle? No, sire, panted the horse. Aslan is here. It is all by his orders. He has commanded. Where, danger king, said Jewel. Tyrion looked up and saw that Calormens mixed with a few talking beasts were beginning to run toward them from every direction. The 2 dead men had died without a cry, and so it had come. It had taken a moment for the rest of the crowd knew what had happened. But now they did. Most of them had naked scimitars in their hands. Quick, on my back, said Jewel. The king flung himself astride of his old friend, who turned and galloped away. He changed directions twice or thrice as soon as they were out of sight of their enemies, crossed a stream, and shouted without slackening his pace. "Whither away, sire? To Cair Paravel." "Old friend," said Tyrion, "let me off." He slid off the unicorn's back and faced him. "Jewel," said the king, "we have done a dreadful deed." "We were sorely provoked," said Jewel, "but to leap on them unawares without defying them while they were unarmed. We are two murderers, Jewel. I am dishonored forever." Jewel dropped his head. He too was ashamed. "And then," said the king, "the horse said it was by Aslan's orders. The rat said the same. They all say Aslan is here. How if it were true?" "But sire, how could Aslan be commanding such dreadful things?" "He is not a tame lion," said Tyrion. "How should we know what he would do? We who are murderers. Jewel, I will go back. I will give up my sword and put myself in the hands of these Calormans and ask that they bring me before Aslan and let him do justice on me." "You will go to your death then," said Jewel. "Do you think I care if Aslan dooms me to death?" said the king. "That would be nothing. Nothing at all. Would it not be better to be dead than to have this terrible fear that Aslan has come and is not like the Aslan we have believed in and longed for? It is as if the sun rose one day and were a black sun." "I know," said Jewel, "or as if you drank water and it were dry water. You are in the right, sire. This is the end of all things. Let us go and give ourselves up." "There is no need for both of us to go. If ever we loved one another, let me go with you now," said the unicorn. "If you are dead, and if Aslan is not Aslan, what life is left for me?" They turned and walked back together, shedding bitter tears. As soon as they came to the place where the work was done, and the Calormans raised a cry and came towards them with their weapons in hand, but the king held out his sword with the hilt toward them and said, "I, who was king of Narnia and am now dishonored knight, give myself up to the justice of Aslan. Bring me before him." "And I give myself up too," said Jewel. Then the dark men came round them in a thick crowd. There it is. Then the dark men came around them in a thick crowd, smelling of garlic and onions, their white eyes flashing dreadfully in their brown faces. They put a rope halter around Jewel's neck. They took the king's sword away and tied his hands behind his back. One of the Calormans, who had a helmet instead of a turban and seemed to be in command, snatched the gold circlet off Tyrion's head and hastily put it away somewhere among his clothes. They led the two prisoners uphill to a place where there was a big clearing, and this was what the prisoners saw. At the center of the clearing, which was also the highest point of the hill, there was a little hut like a stable with a thatched roof. Its door was shut. On the grass in front of the door there sat an ape. Tyrion and Jewel, who had been expecting to see Aslan and had heard nothing about an ape yet, were very bewildered when they saw it. The ape was, of course, Shift himself, but he looked 10 times uglier than when he lived by Cauldron Pool, for he was now dressed up. He was wearing a scarlet jacket, which did not fit him very well, having been made for a dwarf. He had jeweled slippers on his hind paws, which would not stay on properly, because, as you know, the hind paws of an ape are really like hands. He wore what seemed to be a paper crown on his head. There was a great pile of nuts beside him, and he kept cracking nuts with his jaws and spitting out shells. And he also kept on pulling up the scarlet jacket to scratch himself. A great number of talking beasts stood facing him, and nearly every face in that crowd looked miserably worried and bewildered. When they saw who the prisoners were, they all groaned and whimpered. "O Lord Shift, mouthpiece of Aslan," said the chief Calorman, "we bring you prisoners. By our skill and courage, and by the permission of the great god Tash, we have taken alive these two desperate murderers."
"Give me that man's sword," said the ape.
They took the king's sword and handed it with the sword belt and all to the monkey, and he hung it round his own neck and which made him look sillier than ever.
We'll see about those two later, said the ape, spitting out a shell in the direction of the two prisoners. I got some other business first. They can wait. Now listen to me, everyone. The first thing I want to say is about nuts. Where's that head squirrel got to?
Here, sir, said a red squirrel, coming forward and making a nervous little bow.
Oh, you are you? Said the ape with a nasty look. Now attend to me. Aslan wants more nuts. These you've brought aren't anything like enough. You must bring me some more, do you hear? Twice as many, and they've got to be here by sunset tomorrow, and there mustn't be any bad ones or any small ones among them.
A murmur of dismay ran through the other squirrels, and the head squirrel plucked up courage to say, Please, would Aslan himself speak to us about it? It must be allowed to see him.
Well, you won't, said the ape, and he may be very kind, though it's a lot more than most of you deserve, and come out for a few minutes tonight. Then you can all have a look at him, but you will not have you all crowding round him and pestering him with questions. Anything you want to say to him will be passed on through me, if I think it's worth bothering him at all. In the meantime, all you squirrels had better go and see about the nuts, and make sure they're here by tomorrow evening, or my word, you'll catch it.
The poor squirrels all scampered away as if a dog were running after him. The nuts they had carefully hoarded for the winter had nearly all been eaten by now, and of the few that were left, they had already given the ape far more than they could spare. Then a deep voice, it belonged to a great tusked and shaggy boar, spoke from another part of the crowd.
Oh, why can't we see Aslan properly and talk to him? It said. Well, he used to appear in Narnia in the old days. Everyone could talk to him face to face.
Don't you believe it, said the ape. And even if it was true, times have changed. Aslan says he's far too busy, far too soft with you before. Do you see? Well, he isn't going to be soft anymore. He's going to lick you into shape this time. He'll teach you to think he's a tame lion.
A low moaning and whimpering was heard among the beasts, and after that, a dead silence which was more miserable still.
And now, there's another thing you've got to learn, said the ape. I hear some of you are saying I'm an ape. Well, I'm not. I'm a man. If I look like an ape, that's because I'm so very, very old. Hundreds and hundreds of years old. And it's because I'm so old that I'm so wise. And it's because I'm so wise that I'm the only one Aslan is ever going to speak to. He can't be bothered talking to a lot of stupid animals. He'd tell me what you've got to do, and I'll tell the rest of you. And take my advice and see you do it in double quick orders and time, for he doesn't mean to stand any nonsense.
There was dead silence except for the noise of a very young badger crying and its mother trying to keep it quiet.
And now there's another thing,
said the ape, as he went on, fitting a fresh nut into his cheek.
I hear some of the horses are saying, let's hurry up and get this job of carting timber over as quickly as we can, and then we'll be free again. Well, you can get that idea out of your heads at once. And not only the horses either. Everybody who can work is going to be made to work in the future. Aslan has it all settled with the King of Calormen, the Tisroc, as our dark-faced friends, the Calormens, call him. All you horses and bulls and donkeys are to be sent down into Calormen to work for your living, pulling and carrying the way horses and such like do in other countries. And all you digging animals like moles and rabbits and dwarves are going to do work in the Tisroc's mines. And...
No, howled the beasts. It can't be true. Aslan would never sell us into slavery to the King of Calormen.
None of that! Hold your noise, said the ape with a snarl. Who said anything about slavery? You won't be slaves. You'll be paid very good wages, too. That is to say, your pay will be paid into Aslan's treasury, and he will use it all for everybody's good.
Then he glanced and almost winked at the chief Calorman. The Calorman bowed and replied in the pompous Calorman way, "Most sapient mouthpiece of Aslan, the Tisroc may live forever, is wholly of one mind that your lordship in this judicious plan."
"There you see," said the ape. "It's all arranged, and all for your own good. We'll be able, with the money you earn, to make Narnia a country worth living in. There will be oranges and bananas pouring in, and roads and big cities, and schools and offices and whips, muzzles and saddles and cages and kennels and prisons. Oh, everything."
But we don't want all those things, said an old bear. We want to be free, and we want to hear Aslan speak himself.
"Now don't you start arguing," said the ape, "or it's a thing I won't stand. I'm a man. You're only a fat, stupid old bear. Do what you know. What do you know even about freedom? You think freedom means doing what you like? Well, you're wrong. That isn't true freedom. True freedom means doing what I tell you."
Grunted the bear and scratched its head. It found this sort of thing hard to understand. "Please, please," said a high voice of a woolly lamb who was so young that everyone was surprised he dared to speak at all.
"What is it now?" said the ape. "Be quick."
"Please," said the lamb, "I can't understand. What have we to do with the Calormans? We belong to Aslan. They belong to Tash. They have called God... They have a god called Tash. They say he has 4 arms and the head of a vulture. They kill men on his altar. I don't believe there's any such person as Tash, but if there was, how could Aslan be friends with him?" All the animals cocked their heads sideways, and all their bright eyes flashed toward the ape. They knew it was the best question anyone had asked yet. The ape jumped up and spat at the lamb.
"Baby," he hissed. "Silly little bleater. Go home to your mother and drink milk. What do you understand of such things?" But the others listened. "Tash is only another name for Aslan. All that old idea of us being right and the Calormans wrong is silly. We know better now. The Calormans use different words, but we all mean the same thing. Tash and Aslan are only 2 different names for you-know-who. That's why there can never be any quarrel between them. Get that into your heads, you stupid brutes. Tash is Aslan. Aslan is Tash."
You know how sad your own dog's face can look sometimes. Think of that, and then think of all the faces of those talking beasts, all those honest, humble, bewildered birds, bears, badgers, rabbits, moles, and mice, all far sadder than that. Every tail was down, every whisker drooped. It would have broken your heart with very pity to see their faces. There was only one who did not look at all unhappy. It was a ginger cat, a great big Tom in the prime of life, who sat bolt upright with his tail curled round his toes. In the very front row of all the beasts, he had been staring hard at the ape and the Calorman captain all the time and had never once blinked his eyes. "Excuse me," said the cat very politely, "but this interests me. Does your friend from Calorman say the same?" "Assuredly," said the Calorman. "The enlightened ape man, is in the right. Aslan means neither less nor more than Tash." "Especially Aslan means no more than Tash?" suggested the cat. "No more at all," said the Calorman, looking the cat straight in the face.
"Is that good enough for you, Ginger?" said the ape.
"Oh, certainly," said Ginger coolly. "Thank you very much. I only wanted to be quite clear. I think I am beginning to understand. Up till now, the king and Jewel had said nothing. They were waiting until the ape should bid them speak, for they thought it was no use interrupting. But now, as Tyrion looked round on the miserable faces of the Narnians, and saw how they would all believe that Aslan and Tash were one and the same, he could bear it no longer. "Ape!" he cried with a great voice. "You lie damnably. You lie like a Calorman. You lie like an ape." He meant to go on and ask how the terrible god Tash, who fed on the blood of his people, could possibly be the same as the good lion by whose name all Narnia was saved. If he had been allowed to speak, the rule of the ape might have ended that day. The beasts might have seen the truth and thrown the ape down, but before he could say another word, 2 Calormen struck him in the mouth with all their force, and a third from behind kicked his feet from under him, and as he fell, the ape squealed in rage and terror.
Take him away, take him away, take him where he cannot hear us, nor we hear him. Tie him to a tree. Aslan will do justice on him later.
Chapter 4. What happened that night? The king was so dizzy from being knocked down that he hardly knew what was happening under the Calormans as the Calormans untied his wrists and put his arms straight down by his sides and set him with his back against an ash tree. Then they bound ropes around his ankles and his knees and his waist and his chest and left him there. What worried him worst at the moment, for it is often little things that are hardest to stand, was that his lip was bleeding where they had hit him, and he couldn't wipe the little trickle of blood away, although it tickled him. From where he was, he could still see the little stable on the top of the hill, and the ape sitting in front of it. He could just hear the ape's voice still going on and on every now and then from some answer from the crowd, but he could not make out the words. "I wonder what they've done to Jewel," thought the king. Presently the crowd of beasts broke up and began going away in different directions. Some passed close to Tyrion. They looked at him as if they were both frightened and sorry to see him tied up, but none of them spoke. Soon they had all gone, and there was silence in the wood. Then hours and hours went past, and Tyrion became first very thirsty, and then very hungry. And as the afternoon dragged on and turned into evening, he became cold too. His back was very sore, and the sun went down, and it began to be twilight. When it was almost dark, Tyrion heard a light pitter-patter of feet and saw some small creatures coming towards him. The 3 on the left were mice, and there was a rabbit in the middle, and on the right were 2 moles. Both these were carrying little bags on their backs, which gave them a curious look in the dark, so that at first he wondered what kind of beasts they were. Then in a moment they were all standing up on their hind legs, laying their cool paws on his knees and giving his knees snuffly animal kisses. They could reach his knees because Narnian talking beasts of that sort are bigger than the dumb beasts of the same kind in England.
"Lord King, dear Lord King," said their shrill voices, "we are so sorry for you. We dared untie you because Aslan might be angry with us, but we've brought you your supper."
At once the first mouse climbed nimbly up till he was perched on the rope that bound Tyrion's chest and was wrinkling his blunt nose in front of Tyrion's face. Then the second mouse climbed up and hung on just below the first mouse. The other beasts stood on the ground and began handing things up.
"Drink, sire, and then you'll find you are able to eat,"
said the topmost mouse, and Tyrion found that a little wooden cup was being held to his lips. It was only the size of an egg cup, so that he had hardly tasted the wine in it before it was empty. But then the mouse passed it down, and the others refilled it, and it was passed up again, and Tyrion emptied it a second time. In this way they went on till he had quite a good drink, which was all the better for coming in little doses, for that is more thirst-quenching than one long draught.
"Here is cheese, sire," said the first mouse, "but not very much, for fear it would make you too thirsty."
And after the cheese they fed him with oat cakes and fresh butter, and then with some more wine.
"Now, hand up the water," said the first mouse, "and I'll wash the king's face. There is blood on it."
And then Tyrion felt something like a tiny sponge dabbing his face, and it was most refreshing.
"Little friends," said Tyrion, "how can I thank you for all this? Oh, you needn't, said the little voices. What else could we do? We don't want any other king. We're your people. If it was only the ape and the Calormans who were against you, we would have fought till we were cut into pieces before we'd have let them tie you up. We would indeed, but we can't go against Aslan.
Do you think it is really Aslan? Asked the king.
Oh, yes, said the rabbit. He came out of the stable last night. We all saw him.
What was he like? Asked the king.
Like a terrible great lion, to be sure, said one of the mice.
And you think it is really Aslan who is killing the wood nymphs and making you all slaves to the king of Calormen?
That's bad, isn't it? Said the second mouse. It would have been better if we died before all this began. But there's no doubt about it. Everyone says it is Aslan's orders, and we've seen him. We didn't think Aslan would be like that. Why, we wanted him to come back to Narnia. He seems to have come back very angry this time, said the first mouse. We must all have done something dreadfully wrong without knowing it. He must be punishing us for something, but I think we might... I do think we might be told what it was. Oh, I suppose what we're doing now may be wrong, said the rabbit. I don't care if it is, said one of the moles. I'd do it again. But the others said, oh, hush, hush, and do be careful. And then they all said, we're sorry, dear king. We must go back now. It would never do for us to be caught here.
Leave me at once, dear beasts, said Tyrion. I would not for all Narnia bring any of you into danger.
Good night, said the beasts, rubbing their noses against his knees. We will come back if we can.
And then they all pattered away, and the wood seemed darker and colder and lonelier than it had been before they came. The stars came out, and time went slowly on. Imagine how slowly, while the last king of Narnia, stood stiff and sore and upright against the tree in his bonds. But at last, something happened. Far away, there appeared a red light. Then it disappeared for a moment, and then came back, bigger and stronger. Then he could see the dark shapes going to and fro on this side of the light and carrying bundles and throwing them down. He knew now what he was looking at. It was a bonfire, newly lit, and people were throwing bundles of brushwood onto it. Presently, it blazed up, and Tyrion could see that it was on the very top of the hill. He could see quite clearly the stable behind it, all lit up in the red glow, and a great crowd of beasts and men between the fire and himself. A small figure hunched up beside the fire must be the ape. It was saying something to the crowd, but he could not hear what. Then it went and bowed 3 times to the ground in front of the door of the stable. Then he got up and opened the door, and something on 4 legs, something that walked rather stiffly, came out of the stable and stood facing the crowd. A great wailing or howling went up so loud that Tyrion could hear some of the words. Aslan! 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 Cried the beasts. Speak to us! Comfort us! Be angry with us no more! From where Tyrion was, he could not make out very clearly what the thing was, but he could see that it was yellow and hairy. He had never seen the great lion. He had never seen a common lion. He couldn't be sure that what he saw was not the real Aslan. He had not expected Aslan to look like that stiff thing which stood and said nothing. But how could one be sure? For a moment, horrible thoughts went through his mind. Then he remembered the nonsense about Tash and Aslan being the same, and knew that the whole thing must be a cheat. The ape put his head close up to the yellow thing's head, as if he were listening to something it was whispering to him. Then he turned and spoke to the crowd, and the crowd wailed again. Then the yellow thing turned clumsily round and walked, you might almost say waddled, back into the stable, and the ape shut the door behind it. After that, the fire must have been put out, for the light vanished quite suddenly, and Tyrion was once more alone with the cold and the darkness. He thought of other kings who had lived and died in Narnia in old times, and it seemed to him that none of them had ever been so unlucky as himself. He thought of his great-grandfather's great-grandfather, King Rilian, who had been stolen away by a witch when he was only a young prince and kept hidden for years in the dark caves beneath the land of the northern giants. But then it had all come right in the end, for 2 mysterious children had suddenly appeared from the land beyond the world's end, and had rescued him so that he came home to Narnia and had a long and prosperous reign.
It's not like that with me, said Tyrion to himself. Then he went further back and thought about Rilian's father, Caspian the Seafarer, whose wicked uncle King Miraz had tried to murder him, and how Caspian fled away into the woods and lived among the dwarfs. But that story too had all come right in the end, for Caspian also had been helped by children. Only there were 4 of them that time, who came from somewhere beyond the world and fought a great battle and set him on his father's throne. But it was all long ago, said Tyrion to himself. That sort of thing doesn't happen now. And then he remembered, for he had always been good at history when he was a boy, how those same 4 children who had helped Caspian had been in Narnia over 1,000 years before, and it was then that they had done the most remarkable thing of all. For then they had defeated the terrible White Witch and ended the 100 years of winter, and after that they had reigned, all 4 of them together at Cair Paravel, till they were no longer children, but great kings and lovely queens, and their reign had been the golden age of Narnia, and Aslan had come into that story a lot. He had come into all the other stories too, as Tyrion now remembered. Aslan and children from another world, thought Tyrion. They have always come in when things were at their worst. Oh, if only they could now. And he called out, Aslan! Aslan! Aslan, come and help us now! But the darkness and the cold and the quietness went on just the same. Let me be killed, cried the king. I ask nothing for myself, but come and save all of Narnia. And still there was no change in the night or the wood, but there began to be a kind of change inside Tyrion. Without knowing why, he began to feel a faint hope, and he felt somehow stronger. Oh, Aslan, Aslan, he whispered, if you will not come yourself, at least send me the helpers from beyond the world. Or let me call them. Let my voice carry beyond the worlds. And then, hardly knowing what he was doing, how he was doing it, he suddenly cried out in a great voice, Children, children, friends of Narnia, come, quick, come to me. Across the worlds I call to you, I, Tyrion, King of Narnia, Lord of Cair Paravel, and the Emperor of the Lone Islands. And immediately he was plunged into a dream, if it was a dream, more vivid than any he had had in his life. He seemed to be standing in a lighted room where 7 people sat round a table. It looked as if they had just finished their meal. 2 of those people were very old, an old man with a white beard and an old woman with wise, merry, twinkling eyes. He who sat at the right hand of the old man was hardly full-grown, certainly younger than Tyrion himself, but with his face had already the look of a king and a warrior. And you could almost say the same of the other youth who sat at the right hand of the old woman. Facing Tyrion across the table sat a fair-haired girl, younger than either of these. And on either side of her a boy and girl who were younger still. They were all dressed in what seemed to Tyrion the oddest clothes of all. But he had no time to think about details like that, for instantly the youngest boy and both the girls started to their feet, and one of them gave a little scream. The old woman started and drew in her breath sharply. The old man must have made some sudden movement too, for the wine glass which stood at his right hand was swept off the table. Tyrion could hear the twinkling noise as it broke on the floor. Then Tyrion realized that these people could see him. They were staring at him as if they saw a ghost, but he noticed that the king-like one who sat at the old man's right never moved, though he turned pale, except that he clenched his hand very tight. Then he said, Speak! If you're not a phantom or a dream, you have a Narnian look about you, and we are the 7 friends of Narnia. Tyrion was longing to speak, and he tried to cry out aloud that he was Tyrion, King of Narnia, in need of great help, but he found, as I have sometimes found in dreams too, that his voice made no noise at all. The one who had already spoken to him rose to his feet. Shadow or spirit, whatever you are, he said, fixing his eyes upon Tyrion, if you are from Narnia, I charge you in the name of Aslan, speak to me. I am Peter, the High King. The room began to swim before Tyrion's eyes. He heard the voices of those 7 people all speaking at once, all getting fainter every second, and they were saying things like, Look, it's fading, it's melting away, oh, it's vanishing. Next moment, he was wide awake, still tied to the tree, colder and stiffer than ever. The wood was full of the pale, dreary light that comes from before sunrise, and he was soaking wet with dew. It was nearly morning. That waking was about the worst moment he had ever had in his life.
chapter 5. This will be the last chapter we read today, everybody. How help came to the king. But his misery did not last long. Almost at once there came a bump, and then a second bump, and 2 children were standing before him. The wood in front of him had been quite empty a second before, and he knew they had not come from behind his tree, for he would have heard them. They had in fact simply appeared from nowhere. He saw at a glance that they were wearing the same queer, dingy sort of clothes as the people in his dream, and he saw at a second glance that they were the youngest boy and girl out of that party of 7. "Oh gosh," said the boy. "That took one's breath away. I thought..." "Hurry up and get him untied," said the girl. "We can talk afterwards." Then she added, turning to Tyrion, "I'm sorry. We've been so long. We came the moment we could." While she was speaking, the boy produced a small knife from his pocket and was quickly cutting the king's bonds. Too quickly, in fact, for the king was so stiff and numb that when the last cord was cut, he fell forward on his hands and knees. He couldn't get up again till he had brought some life back into his legs by a good rubbing. "I say," said the girl, "it was you, wasn't it, who appeared to us that night when we were all at supper, nearly a week ago?" "A week, fair maiden," said Tyrion. "My dream led me into your world scarce 10 minutes since." "Oh, it's the usual muddle about times, Pole," said the boy. "I remember now," said Tyrion. "That too comes in all the old tales. The time of your strange land is different from ours. But if we speak of time, 'tis time to be gone from here, for my enemies are close at hand. Will you come with me?" "Of course," said the girl. "It's you we've come to help." Tyrion got to his feet and led them rapidly downhill, southward and away from the stable. He knew where he meant to go, but his first aim was to get to the rocky places where they would leave no trail, and his second to cross some water so that they would leave no scent. This took them about an hour's scrambling and wading, and while that was going on, nobody had any breath to talk. But even so, Tyrion kept on stealing glances at his companions. The wonder of walking beside the creatures from another world made him feel a little dizzy, but it also made all the old stories seem far more real than they had ever seen before. Anything might happen now. "Now," said Tyrion as they came to the head of a little valley which ran down before them among young birch trees. "We are out of danger of those villains for a pace, and may walk more easily." Take a small pause here. Hello, Yenza. Welcome in, my dear and noble battle sister. How are you today? How's the rest of your stream go? How'd the rest of your stream? Kajash de Fapasajifabadafanifasja. Did I say that right, Yenza? I hope I did. How are you doing? Welcome in. Right there. How was your stream? Yes, a Yenza raid. One of the most glorious and honorable of raids, I must say, my dear and glorious friend. I hope you're ready for battle this evening. Guys, Yenza is a marvelously talented streamer. I'm sure you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful time over there. I know you guys may have to raid and run and get some lunch or whatever you got to do, and if you have to, I totally understand. But we are reading The Last Battle. This is the final book in the Chronicles of Narnia series by C.S. Lewis, and it's a rough one. I'm gonna warn you right now. But I will try to serve you as well as the magnificent Yenza has, although I pale in comparison to her glory. Please make sure you give her a follow if you haven't done so. You're gonna have a good time over there. Perfect pronunciations. Your reading has gotten a lot better, thank you. My elocution lessons have been paying off. Oh, indeed. Are people dying a lot? Yes. Yes. So if you guys haven't read the Chronicles of Narnia series, this is the last book, and it's called The Last Battle, and it's a rough read. Mainly because one of the bad guys is a complete and total narcissist, and C.S. Lewis writes the manipulative, crushing behavior of this person so well, and the things that happen to people, and the manipulating, the gaslighting. It's a tough read, and it's a good book. It's a good story. It's a great book, but it's rough. It's emotionally rough to listen to. It's emotionally rough to listen to. So, yay! Yeah. It's good though. But we're really just picked up. So if you guys are just joining us right now, It appears that Eustace and Jill from the last book have just arrived in Narnia to aid the imprisoned King Tyrion, the last king of Narnia. And he's been captured by an ape named Shift, who has tricked everybody into thinking that Aslan has reappeared in Narnia. But we all know that Aslan is really just a kind of dumb, weak donkey named Puzzle who Shift has been manipulating and dressed up as a lion. To say that's it's all very frustrating. Yeah, exactly. Drama. Oh my gosh. But you guys are welcome to sit and listen. We're going to continue. We're reading the final chapter for today. We're on chapter 5. We have time. We might do chapter 6. We'll see. Depending on how long it is. But sit back, relax, enjoy, and we'll keep going in this glory. If you guys have to leave though, and you got to raid and run, you got to do your thing for lunch and such, I totally understand. No worries. But we shall continue. So again, Eustace and Jill have just arrived, and they've just cut Tyrion's bonds. He was tied to a tree, and we're about to find out what's about to happen. So now. Let's see. We're going to continue. Now, said Tyrion as they came to the head of a little valley which ran down before them among young birch trees. We are out of danger of those villains for a space and may walk more easily. The sun had risen. Dewdrops were twinkling on every branch and birds were singing. What about some grub? I mean, for you, sir. We too have had our breakfast, said the boy. Tyrion wondered very much what he meant by grub, but when the boy opened a bulgy satchel which he was carrying and pulled out a rather greasy and squishy packet, he understood. He was ravenously hungry, though he hadn't thought about it till that moment. There were 2 hard-boiled eggs, sandwiches, and 2 cheese sandwiches, and 2 with some kind of paste in them. If he hadn't been so hungry, he wouldn't have thought much of the paste, for that is a sort of food nobody eats in Narnia. But the time he had eaten all 6 sandwiches, they had come to the bottom of the valley, and there they found a mossy cliff with a little fountain bubbling out of it. All 3 stopped and drank and splashed their hot faces. And now, said the girl as she tossed her wet hair back from her forehead, aren't you going to tell us who you are, and why you were tied up, and what's it all about? With a good will, damsel, said Tyrion, but we must keep on the march. So while they went on walking, he told them who he was and all the things that had happened to him. And now, he said at the end, I am going to a certain tower, one of 3 that were built in my grandsire's time to guard Lantern Wastes against the certain perilous outlaws who dwelled there in his day. By Aslan's good will, I will not be robbed of my keys. In that tower we shall find stores of weapons and mail and some victuals also, though no better than dry biscuit. There also we can lie safe while we make our plans. And now, prithee, tell me who you 2 are and all of your story. Oh, I'm Eustace Scrubb, and this is Jill Pole, said the boy. And we were here once before, ages and ages ago, more than a year ago by our time, and there was a chap called Prince Rillian, and they were keeping his chap underground, and Puddleglum put his foot in. Ha! Cried Tyrion. Are you then that Eustace and that Jill who rescued King Rillian from his long enchantment? Yes, that's us, said Jill. So, he's King Rillian now, is he? Oh, of course he would be, I forgot. Nay, said Tyrion. I am the 7th in descent from him. He has been dead for over 200 years. Jill made a face. Oh, she said, that's the horrid part, that coming back to Narnia. But Eustace went on. Well, now that you know who we are, sire, he said, and it was like this. The professor and Aunt Polly had got all of us friends of Narnia together. I know not these names, Eustace, said Tyrion. Oh, they're the 2 who came into Narnia at the very beginning, the day all the animals learned to talk. By the lion's mane, cried Tyrion. Those 2, the Lord Diggory and the Lady Polly, from the dawn of the world, still all alive in your place. The wonder of the glory of it. But tell me. Oh, she really isn't our aunt, you know, said Eustace. She's Miss Plummer. We call her Aunt Polly,
Well, those two got us all together partly just for fun, so that we could all have a good jar about Narnia. For, of course, there's no one else we can ever talk to about things like this. But partly because the professor had a feeling that there was somehow wanted over here. Well, when we came in like a ghost, oh, for goodness, it nearly frightened the lives out of us, and vanished without saying a word. After that, we knew for certain there was something up. The next question was how to get here. You can't go just by wanting to. So we talked, and at last the professor said the only way would be by the magic rings. It was by those rings that he and Aunt Polly got here long ago, and they were only kids years before we younger ones were born. But the rings had all been buried in the garden of a house in London. That's our big town, sire. And the house has been sold. So then the problem was how to get at them. You'll never guess what we did in the end. Peter and Edmund, that's the High King Peter, the one who you spoke to. He went up to London to get into the garden from the back early in the morning before people were up. They were dressed like workmen so that if anyone did see them, it would look as if they'd come to do something about the drains. Oh, I wish I'd been with them. It must have been glorious fun. And they must have succeeded, for next day, Peter sent us a wire. That's a sort of message, sire. I'll explain about it sometime later. He sent to say he's got the rings. And the day after, that was the day Paul and I had to go back to school. We're the only two who are still at school, and we're at the same one. So Peter and Edmund were to meet us at a place on the way down to school and hand over the rings. It had to be us two who were going to Narnia, you see, because the older ones couldn't come again. So we got into the train. That's the kind of thing people travel in our world, a lot of wagons chained together. And the professor and Aunt Polly and Lucy came with us. We wanted to keep together as long as we could. Well, we were in the train, and we were just getting to the station where the others were to meet us, and I was looking out the window to see if I could see them when suddenly there came, well, a most frightful jerk and a noise, and there we were in Narnia, and there was your majesty tied up to the tree.
So you never used the rings?
No, said Eustace, never even saw them. Aslan did it all for us in his own way without any rings.
But the High King Peter has them, said Tyrion.
Yes, said Jill, but we don't think he can use them. When the two other Pevensies, King Edmund and Queen Lucy, were last here, Aslan said they would never come to Narnia again. And he said something of the same sort to the High King only longer ago. You may be sure he'll come like a shot if he's loud. Gosh, said Eustace, it's getting hot in the sun. Are we nearly there, sire?
Look, said Tyrion, and pointed. Not many yards away, grey battlements rose above the treetops, and after a minute's more walking, they came out into an open, grassy space. A stream ran across it, and on the far side of the stream stood a squat, square tower with very few and narrow windows, one heavy-looking door in the wall that faced them. Tyrion looked sharply this way and that to make sure that no enemies were in sight. Then he walked up to the tower and stood still for a moment, fishing up his bunch of keys, which he wore inside his hunting dress, on a narrow silver chain that went around his neck. It was a nice bunch of keys that he brought out, for 2 were golden and many were richly ornamented. You could see at once that they were keys made for opening solemn and secret rooms in palaces, or chests and caskets of sweet-smelling wood that contained royal treasures. But the key which he now put into the lock of the door was big and plain and more rudely made. The lock was stiff, and for a moment Tyrion began to be afraid that he would not be able to turn it. But at last he did, and the door swung open with a sullen creak. "Welcome, friends," said Tyrion. "I fear this is the best palace that the King of Narnia can now offer to his guests." Tyrion was pleased to see that the 2 strangers had been well brought up. They both said not to mention it, and that they were sure it would be very nice. As a matter of fact, it was not particularly nice. It was rather dark and smelled very damp. There was only one room in it, and this room went right up to the stone roof. A wooden staircase in one corner led up to a trapdoor by which you could get out on the battlements. There were a few rude bunks to sleep in, and a great many lockers and bundles. And there was also a hearth, which looked as if nobody had lit a fire in it for many great years.
Oh, we'd better go out and gather some firewood first thing, hadn't we? Said Jill. Not yet, comrade, said Tyrion. He was determined that they should not be caught unarmed and began searching the lockers, and thankfully remembering that he had always been careful to have these garrison towers inspected once a year and make sure that they were stocked with all things needful. The bowstrings were there, and their coverings of oiled silk. The swords and spears were greased against rust, and the armor was kept bright in its wrappings. But there was something even better. Look, said Tyrion as he drew out a long mail shirt of a curious pattern and flashed it before the children's eyes. Oh, that's funny-looking mail, sire, said Dwarf. Aye, lad, said Tyrion. No Narnian dwarf smithied that. 'Tis mail of Calormen, outlandish gear. I have ever kept a few suits of it in readiness, for I never knew when I or my friends might have reason to walk unseen in it. The Tisrock's lands, you see, and to look on this stone bottle. In this there is juice which, when we have rubbed it on our hands and faces, will make us brown as the Calormen. Oh, hurrah, said Jill. Disguises! Oh, I love disguises. Tyrion showed them how to pour out a little of the juice into the palms of their hands, and then rub it well over their faces and necks, right down to the shoulders, and then on their hands and right up to the elbows. He did the same himself. After this had hardened us, After this has hardened us on us, he said, we may wash in water and it will not change. Nothing but oil and ashes will make us white Narnians again. And now, sweet Jill, let us go see how this mail shirt becomes you. 'Tis something too long, yet not so much as I feared. Doubtless it belonged to a page in the train of one of their Tarkans. After the mail shirts, they put on Calormen helmets, which are little round ones fitting tight to the head and having a spike on top. Then Tyrion took long rolls of some white stuff out of the locker and wound them over the helmets till they became turbans. But the little steel spike still stuck up in the middle. He and Eustace took carved Calormen swords and little round shields. There was no sword light enough for Jill, but he gave her a long, straight hunting knife, which might do for a sword at a pinch. Hast any skill with the bow, maiden? Said Tyrion. Nothing worth talking of, said Jill, blushing. Scrub's not bad. Don't believe her, sire, said Eustace. We've both been practicing archery ever since we got back from Narnia last time, and she's about as good as me now. No, not that either of us is much. Then Tyrion gave Jill a bow and a quiver full of arrows. The next business was to light a fire, for inside that tower it still felt more like a cave than like anything indoors, and set one shivering. But they got warm gathering the wood. The sun was now at its highest, and when once the blaze was roaring up the chimney, the place began to look cheerful. Inside was, however, a dull meal, for the best they could do was to pound up some of the hard biscuit which they found in the locker, and poured it into boiling water with salt so as to make a kind of porridge. And of course there was nothing to drink but water. I wish we'd brought a packet of tea, said Jill. Or a tin of cocoa, said Eustace. A firkin or so of good wine in each of these towers will not have been amiss, said Tyrion. All right, that is the end of chapter 5, and I do think we will end it here. We'll end it here for the day. So Thursday we'll begin again. We'll read chapters 6 through 11, I think. And then on Friday, we'll read the rest of the book. We'll read 12 through 16. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this story is at the very least interesting for you. Thank you all for tuning in and being here this morning. We will be back this evening. We are going to battle beside the very Yenzaya who raided us earlier. Hope you guys again followed her. We're gonna be playing Valheim with her and the Giggle Gang, and it's going to be a good time. We're working on beating the game all together. Should be jolly good fun. It's an absolute marvelous time. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait, really. It's going to be great. A while that they did the make their skin darker thing. No way they could do that in a movie today. Yeah, I mean, the Calormens are very much based off of Middle Easterners, and you know, I mean, it's a story headlined in Britain, and, you know, whatever. It's fine. It's only
You know, who cares? But I do know what you mean. I don't think they would even... They never made those movies. The Last Battle. I think. The only one... What did they make up to? The Silver Chair?
In the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s they made up to the Silver Chair,
they did.
and that was it.
They did Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe.
It's a valid disguise, but someone makes their skin darker and everyone freaks out. Yeah, and everyone blows their minds. It's crazy.
They did the Lion in the 90s. They did the Lion, the Witch,
Yep.
the Wardrobe.
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and so more than half.
They did more than... Oh, look, Squixie is streaming. Squixie's streaming. And she's screaming. She's streaming with Gulf Ghoulie and Mia Dragonheart. So here's what we'll do, guys. We're gonna go raid Squixie. Are you guys prepared? We're gonna go raid these noble battle sisters as they play Supermarket together, which I'm sure is a wildly fun, good time. Go bless them in the same marvelous fellowship that you guys have shown me. I hope you guys are ready. Let me put that in there. We're gonna go raid them. Here's some emotes. You can also just say, you know, hail and God bless you, battle sisters. That should do well. You guys go in there, go say hello to them, go bless them. I will see you guys later this evening at 8:30 EST. And we shall go and have ourselves a marvelous time with Yenza and Kat and Kayla and Joseph as we all battle in Valheim trying to get to the next boss. So it's going to be a great time. Viking hype!
I didn't know that there was bosses.
Yeah, there are bosses. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye. Farewell. See you later. Goodbye.